And also, again, sharing of that, I'm concurring with my brother Luis from Peru, that the teachings and traditions about the people in Congo uniting and coming together. And it's happening, I have other individuals from South Hopi. But now they're also like including with other descriptions of what's that called, the other bird, not the Congo, but gosh, I can't remember if that's in Mexico as well. But also, when there was that pronounced earlier they were talking about, was it Guatequero? Quetzalcoatl, yeah. Mi español poquito. But anyways, the Mayan pronunciation of Kukulkan, our Hopi pronunciation of water serpent, father the so the N syllable, kam, is evident. But we call it the water serpent. The Sunnis call it the sea serpent. Southern relatives call it the plume serpent. So, again, snake clan, histories of the snake is also cool, like the teachings from Pyro. And whenever there's the natural occurrences of earthquakes, aftershocks, tremors, the serpent is moving in the earth. I like to document a lot of the perpetual symbols that pertain to the symbol. So I refer to this image up here as the star blower, but the way that the two observers or sisters are positioned, it reminds me of the stance of holding the hand, very similar to the Egyptians. But also could be Reiki, they're channeling energy to assist and help the individual. And that is also the layout of the sisters. Please, in our culture, we do have the taboo to not count the numbers of stars. They say that when you count that, that's actually your limited time of years you're going to live. So that's our taboo in our Hopi culture. We don't count. It's just like the sisters. Milky Way. This is the actual prophecy rock here. So again, all the symbols are not so clear, but my village board and the traditional leadership of all the vandalism and defacement that occurred and happened on there, now they have this particularly closed off for visitation. And it's worldly renowned. I always get that request for individuals to go to this place because again, it is one of the very deepest chakras of crown chakra that connects into the energy that's emitted on there. But other people would see like even a serpent symbol, that'll be another picture image and sable. But there is a symbol like the shadow, what I call shadow field in the depressions of the rock, really shows the deep of a serpent on it also. It's not clear on this one, because this one has direct sunlight on it. Again, that other variation of the four direction symbol, this one will pertain to the travels on land. Downwards will represent the ancestors that traveled in South America. Up to the north, which the histories refer to it as the North Door. That would commonly be the Bering Strait, or the land bridge. And the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. And the Earth. So the linears to show the radiation movement of the Earth. But in our history teaching, there were descriptions given that the sun rose from the west and set in the east. That was the ancestral rotation of Mother Earth. And when the Mayans talk about that 10 days predictions about the 7 days of darkness, day and night, my assumption with that teaching, maybe the earth will go to standstill, first standstill, and revert back to the original rotation of that ancestral description. So, yeah, we don't know again. Us Hopis don't have all the answers for salvation of humanity. Like again, they're the same, everybody. And again, the different history teachings about the world ages. So basically, first world description, cleansing of fire will pertain to all the volcanism that occurred and happened. So when the history teachings about underground interior earth travel, the volcanic tunnels are tubulars. We even do have the histories about the ant people at that particular time that they assisted and gave guidance to all living beings. And of the Anunnaki, they had a benevolent male leader that his name was Anki. And even I'm kind of liking and partial also to the Egyptian culture. The pronunciation of Ankh in our language interprets as to follow or be after. Anki. Anki. But Anki, there's a little side of a Ankh, A-N-G, K, or Q, and then Anu, and Anki is just an N. But ironically, yeah, when people share about the history of teachings about Anunnaki, that's what I share, with our language, that's that description of the ant people and that leader of Anunnaki, his name is Anki. But yeah, there's all these teachings about the serpents or the third world pregnancy. So yeah, first world cleansing, purification of fire. Second world is the Ice Age. As we referred to, there was a no-freeze corridor as the North Door. And third world is the flood as the commonality ice melts to water. And all world cultures have that teaching about the flood. But Mas, our ancestor, told the people as the snake people to go to the east direction. So they went out to the Atlantic Ocean. As they were to return back toward the Hopi area, they did meet the ancestors that were creating and constructing the mound. Because it was hard to try to leave a petroglyph symbol around the area. So when they returned back toward the Hopi area, and I'll be handing this type of printed cards that I have about that. There is a particular serpent symbol that is distinctively showing of the three bends on the serpent symbol, because the commonality in the Southwest, serpent symbols are horizontal or vertical. But this one in particular, and it is in that time period of the archaic or paleo of that time period that I notice and see in the visual of that particular serpent symbol. So it is, again, aligning with the history teaching of the time periods of when construction of the mound was to the group of the Hopi snake ancestors. But they really, again, they were in tune to guidance and navigation as far as. So again, as I shared, the hunter constellation will align with all these ancestral sites in the Southwest region as that new description of archaic astronomy. And again, that teaching of as above, so below. So they did utilize the hunter as the temple in the sky, but all those ancestral sites align with the constellation. Anything, skip that last, that's similar to the earlier one. And I believe that's it. I was going to say, probably the other one didn't say, remember that actual serpent one. But I'll hand out the printed cards of that and my business card as well, so you'll have that information or contact if you ever make it out to the Hopi Reservation. So, Koko, Manui do like the Masa, Yapamuni Matsik and Hini, Ita, Novoki, Hata Atui, Masa, Sinma, Matsik, and thank you for listening to my words and allowing me to share this information with my ancestors and what I share of this specific clarifications and interpretations of what was taught, and still teaching and sharing and still learning from the ancestors on that. So thank you again for listening.
To Serpent Mound Star Knowledge Peace Summit, but she is not new to Star Knowledge. She was in South Dakota last year, November for the 11/11 conference. We're really excited to have her here today as well. So I'd like to introduce you to Jen Cruz. She was enrolled as a tribal member of Minnesota's Red Light Band of Chippewa. She is a Reiki master, teacher, advanced higher brain living facilitator, and retreat specialist. She's also a reflexologist specializing in several holistic modalities. She incorporates the bones of native medicine into her practice as instructed by her beloved elders. Jen is a missing person psychic medium, and she's also a remote viewer. She is also a team leader and founder of She Squashers, an all-female Bigfoot experiment. This is Minnesota's first all-female research team. Along with Jenna Grover, also a co-founder of She Squatchers, they travel the world exploring many great mysteries and has been featured in over 11 documentaries, which you can find on Tubi as well as Amazon. So please help me in welcoming Jen Grover. She's my partner in crime. We go all over the world looking for Bigfoot, cryptids, dogman, all kinds of fun stuff. We spent a month in Europe last fall with a film crew researching all kinds of lore over there. We looked for leprechauns, trolls, little people. We had a really good time. So we'll go to the next one. And again, we're just She Squatchers next. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few things that we found that are not readily out there yet. So we found a nest in Michigan. We were, I suppose it was 2 or 3 years ago now, we were out there filming a documentary. And Bigfoots are thought to build ground nests and like giant nests where they're believed to be, just never seen one before. We've seen a couple of them on TV. They're not readily found, but we did find one if you go to the next. So here is this the video of it? So this is just a short clip of it to give it some dimension. And if you go to the next, there will be different images of it. This was about 7 feet across, this nest. And it was really strange. It had this weird goo inside of it that smelled like afterbirth. For those of us who are mothers, we know what that smells like. And here you can see they're standing in it. And it was about this tall off the ground. And there's my teammate Jenna sitting in it. Next. And then that's my filmmaker Jason standing in it. So you can see how intricately it is weaved together and stacked together. It's quite
location called 6 Mile Lake, also there. Native people living there often report seeing strange lights, and then they would see Bigfoot soon after. And this caused them to coin the phrase that the locals knew: when the green lights appear, Bigfoot is near, because they would see them and then they would see the Bigfoot all of a sudden. And so, if you go to the next thing, this is a video. And so, what happened was somebody had reported to us a sighting of Bigfoot during the daytime. They were driving down the road and near Bina, and in an area called Federal Land, just down the road from there. And they looked out into this field, which was a marshy bog, and they saw Bigfoot walking from one patch of trees to the next across this bog. And so we wanted to go investigate this, and we contacted whoever we needed to contact, because we always want to get permission to go onto the land that we're looking at. And we were told we could not go on that land because it is a marshy bog and it was dangerous. They said you could fall through the bog, you would drown. It's worse than falling through the ice because you probably can't get out. So they said no, nobody's allowed to go back there. There's no roads back there. There's nothing. So we decided, okay, we'll just go there in the middle of the night. We'll just park on the road and use our night vision. Jen had gotten this really cool binocular, which could see pretty far in the dark. So it was completely night vision. We're sitting in the car on the highway. And we open the window. I'm in the driver's seat, and she's got the window open, and she's using her binocular to just view the woods. And I said to her, I'm seeing a light out there. Are you seeing a light out there? And she says, yeah. So here you're seeing the light. It's coming in and out. And at first, we tried to debunk it, thinking, could it be headlights? Is there a road somewhere behind there? There is not. We checked. There couldn't be a person out there with flashlights because there was nobody allowed back there. Everything to get back there was blocked. So we watched these strange lights for a while, and then they stopped, and we decided, okay, it's probably time to go. The car was turned off, but the keys were in the ignition. And all of a sudden, our whole vehicle lit up, bright white light, and the lights of the car and the dash turned on and off, on and off, on and off. And then it just stopped. And I said, okay, I think it's time to go. So we were not there looking for strange lights. We were there looking to see if we could see a Bigfoot, because that's where it had been seen walking into. And instead we got these strange lights within a mile of the place where the natives were saying, when the lights appear, Bigfoot is near. So that was pretty neat. That was just a neat find for us, that we had that experience, that we weren't looking for that. And a lot of times, I'm just going to tell you, we've been doing this since 2015. A lot of times, we find things we're not looking for. A lot of times. Jenna's Scandinavian, she has 0 native blood in her, right? And we found Bigfoot tracks going uphill. You could probably do the next slide. That's just the video again. That's fun. I'll back up. So I'm part of Ojibwe, as we've talked about. And so what I find very fascinating when people wonder about is Bigfoot real? Is Bigfoot real? And I say, absolutely, because the Native people have known that Bigfoot is real for a really long time. It's not a maybe. It's not we believe in this mythical creature. Because the 7 sacred teachings of the grandfathers from the Ojibwe teachings are as sacred to them as the 10 Commandments are to the Christians. They're sacred. And each one of the 7 sacred teachings of the grandfathers is represented by an animal, a known animal, okay? We've got honesty right here, represented by the Bigfoot, right? Truth, humility, truth is the turtle, humility is the wolf, love is the eagle, and we go on from there, right? But all of them are represented by animals that are known, okay? And so, would it make sense that they would pick something that wasn't known to represent something as important as one of the 7 sacred teachings of grandfathers? These are ancient teachings for the people, okay? So that was, you can go ahead and this one. So this actually was hanging in my reservation in one of the government buildings, and it's a picture, I took a picture of it. And it is Bigfoot Bigfoot, representing honesty in the seven sacred teachings, along with the seven others in the sky. And we'll just skip this one. It's just talking about how he represents that again. And I am moving through this quite quickly because I have a lot of other things that I want to share with you. So, when I first started looking for Bigfoot, I didn't believe in Bigfoot. I never thought about Bigfoot. I didn't give it two seconds to think about it. It just wasn't something I was doing. I was working as a psychic medium and as a healer. I was working with paranormal teams and missing person cases. And I had a paranormal radio show. And we had a paracon in my state, and Gordon Coleman, a cryptozoologist who has the International Cryptozoology Museum in the state of Maine, happened to be there as a speaker. And so I went and asked him if he would interview for my show. And he said yes. So we sat down for an hour, and he told me all about Bigfoot in my home state of Minnesota. And I was like, wait a minute. I grew up in the woods. I was in the woods always. I never saw anything there that made me think Bigfoot was there. And he assured me that the Indians were there. He wanted someone to take women, just women, out into the woods without men, dogs, or guns, because he felt this would be the recipe for success in finding and interacting with Bigfoot. Because he said the Bigfoots that people are seeing near roadways and where people are, he said these are usually the younger males who are probably out doing the things they're not supposed to be doing, like young males do, right? And he thought that these younger males would be inclined or interested in getting closer to some women out in the woods if they didn't have anything dangerous with them, like men, dogs, or guns. So he thought, wouldn't it be great if some ladies would go out there and do this, please? And he dared me to do it. I don't know about you, but I don't do dares well. I have to do those things. It's like an unwritten law of some kind. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I joked about it on my show, and I'm like, what do you want me to do? Go out there and say, hey there, big boy. I do. So before I went out, I started going to my reservation and talking to the elders, gathering information about Bigfoot. I needed to know more from my tribe. Well, tell me about this Bigfoot. I want to hear more. And so I talked to elders from my reservation, the reservation over where I grew up, and the reservation in North Dakota. I don't know if you know about Minnesota, but we have 9 official Chippewa tribes, and one that is not part of the Minnesota Chippewa tribes because we didn't cede our land, and that's my reservation at Red Lake. So we're the only closed reservation left out there. Anyway, so the Ojibwe Minnesota Chippewa elders, when asked, said that Bigfoot travels instantaneously through the ground from one place to another, physical travel. And so I said, okay, are they like running through tunnels really fast underground? And they said, no. Instantaneous travel through the ground from one place to the other like that, through thought, consciousness. And I said, are you talking about portals? Yes, exactly. And that's what they told me. So this is what the information I'm gathering before I go looking for Bigfoot for the very first time. We can go to the next one. So this is a petroglyph of circles and circles. And when I saw this, I was like, that looks like a portal to me. That looks like a portal to me. Because when you see one, they look like that. They look like circles within circles within circles. And it would only make sense to me that the ancient natives would draw them how they look, right? And if you've ever watched, and if you haven't, I'm going to encourage you to go onto YouTube and find the frequency videos that show you that sound creates patterns. And they do it on a sound clip. Different frequencies will create different patterns with sound. And there are specific pattern frequencies that create this pattern. Okay. Go to the next one. So I'm going to ask you, I know it's kind of light in here, but can you see the circles here? Can you? Okay, so there's 3 pictures like this in a row that you can see them. They change a little bit from one to the next. Can you still see it? And the next? Can you still see? Changes a little bit because portals are moving. Their frequency, right? I took these pictures, and it was a really creepy thing that happened. So it was our first time out in the dark. But before we went, I grabbed these ladies. They were paranormal investigators who were at the Paracon where I met Lauren Coleman. on a reservation next door to my reservation. And there had been a recent sighting there, right on 6 Mile Lake, where a young native man had been fishing off of his canoe, and he didn't come back. And so his family went looking for him because it got dark and he still wasn't back. What had happened was he had pushed his boat off of what they called a local boat launch, which was only the locals knew about. There was not even a dock there. And they just keep their canoes there. And he was fishing, and it was time to come in. His phone had died. And as he was coming into the shore, there was a Bigfoot in the water. And it was about knee-high in the water, and it was aggressively moving towards him as he came in. And so he paddled back out. And it kept matching his movement along the shore. And he was giving aggressive movements. And the guy was like, I'm not going in there then. And he just kept paddling around, waiting for the Bigfoot to go away, and his cell phone was dead. He couldn't call for help. But finally his family drove out there, and when they did, the headlights hit the Bigfoot. They saw it. And it ran into the woods. So they paid attention to where it ran into, and they came back the next day, and there was footprints all over because it was nice and muddy. So that got a lot of people knowing that there was a Bigfoot there. So that's where we decided we were going to go first. So we went there at night with these ladies. It wasn't even a weekend. Nobody knew we were there. And we get out of the car, and my idea, well, first we drove around during the day, and I recognize the picture, so I feel energy as a physical thing, like zzz in my body, right? Everything has its own frequency, so I specifically asked to feel the energy of Bigfoot if it was there. And so we're driving, and I'm like, hey, wait, stop here. I felt something different here, and that's something that I'd never felt before. So we get out and look around. I don't see anything that says Bigfoot might be here, but I marked the GPS coordinates of it. I said, let's come back here tonight. So we did. We got back there that night. And one of my friends had borrowed a thermal camera from somebody. She didn't even know how to work it. All she knew was that you can pull the trigger and it'll take a picture. She didn't even put an SD card in there. Anyway, it was a little 2-inch screen on it, and she handed it to me as she got out of the car to go to the back to get the stuff out of her equipment out of the car. I had everything I needed on my body. She handed me this thermal camera. I was like a kid on Christmas. I was so excited. I was like, this is the first time. I always wanted to play with a thermal camera, so I'm scanning the woods, looking for anything, a deer, a fox, a rabbit. I didn't care. I just wanted something to be there, something to light up as thermal, right? And so I'm standing at the front of the car, right on the right-hand side, and I'm just scanning that forest, scanning. Now I'm standing out in front, and there is someone standing there, just on the left side of the road, just outside the trees. And so I'm like, hey, who's out front of the car? Nobody answered. It's so dark, I can't see. Once the lights of the car turn off, you can't see. I'm like, who's out in front of the car? Nobody answered. Kept asking, who's out in front of the car? Nobody's answering. Marlo was with me. She comes running up to see what's going on. She hears I've got anxiety in my voice. She looks at the camera screen that I'm looking at. She sees what I'm seeing. It looks like there's a person standing there. And she looks up at it with her naked eyes, and she goes, oh, I just saw eyes. And I'm like, what? I dropped the camera down. Now I'm looking for the eyes, and I can't see them. So I lift the camera back up, and now it's gone. I can't find it again. So it's now stepped right into the woods, right? So what do? We're going to walk into the woods right there, right? So 3 of us decide we're going to walk into the woods right there. We start walking into the woods, and all of a sudden we hear this sound. And it sounds like something's coming through the branches, and then there's a plop right in front of us. It's a little rock bounce on the ground right 3 feet in front of us. I'm like, what is going on? And then you hear the sound of it again, plop right next to it. And then again, plop right next to it. I'm like, is that a rock? And Marlo says, that is a rock. And I didn't know anything about Bigfoot. Remember, this is my first time. I didn't know Bigfoot was known for throwing rocks at people. I'd never heard that part before, so I was like, what is going on? And so I opened my awareness and I asked psychically, what does this mean? And it means, don't come this way. So I said, okay, let's back up. So we backed up back to the road. And now we're standing there going, now what do we do? And one of the girls goes, let's do one of those Bigfoot calls like they do on TV. I was like, okay, great idea, go ahead. So she goes, ooh, something like that, a lot louder. And And we're all waiting for something to go back, right? Because that's what happens on TV. I maybe watched 4 or 5 episodes of Finding Bigfoot before this, so I really didn't know. And so we're waiting for it to move back, but it didn't. Instead, something on the right side of the road, not the left side where the rocks were, but on this side of the road, something started walking towards us. 2 feet, very large. You could hear it snap, 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 snapping sticks and branches as it goes. It's very large. You can tell it's bipedal. It's got 2 legs. It's walking. We're pointing our cameras at it. And that's when we discovered that their cameras that they use for paranormal investigating haunted houses do not light up the forest. They don't work the same in the forest as they do in houses. We couldn't see anything. And then it was like that sound, like that, multiplied. And now something is coming towards us from many directions. And we're getting surrounded. And so we didn't talk about what do we do if we're in trouble. We just circled up back to back facing out, which was what I thought was really smart. We just automatically did that. I was like, yay us. But then what happened was, it's coming towards us and we're like, can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? None of us could see it. None of us could see it. And one of the girls yelled out, Jen, do your tobacco thing. We were on a reservation. It was an Ojibwe reservation, and they knew that I would pray with tobacco. That was my tobacco thing. So I took the tobacco out of my pocket into my left hand, because you always pray with it from your hard hand on the left side, right? If you didn't know that, now you do. So I was praying out loud in Ojibwe. I did a very formal greeting. I used every one of my spirit names that was given to me in sacred ceremony. I said my clan, where I come from, who named me, who my ancestors were. This is very formal protocol greeting. And then I said, which is thank you to the little people or to the nature spirits. And I said, and that's thank you to Bigfoot. And as soon as I said thank you to Bigfoot, all of the sound stopped. All the movement stopped at once. It didn't retreat, it just went silent. And I went, yeah! Because my elders had told me that you can pray through the Great Spirit and connect to Bigfoot and ask him to help you, and he would. And I want to explain that because I said this on a podcast one time, because the words that they usually use is pray to Bigfoot, and that's not literally how it is. I want to explain Gitchimanito or Gitchimanadu or the Great Spirit, also known as the Holy Spirit, right? It is the great connection that connects all things. So you can pray through that great connection, the Great Spirit, to connect to anything, anyone, anywhere, anytime. It is our great Wi-Fi. It's our great Wi-Fi that's natural. It's how we connect with anything, anywhere, at any time. And so I used that connection and I connected to Bigfoot, right? So that's what the elders were talking about, that you can use that and ask Bigfoot for help and he will help you. So when I prayed, thank you to Bigfoot, and he stopped, they stopped, to me that was a confirmation of what my elders had told me. And I was excited, yeah! The other girls were like, let's get out of here! And they jumped in the car and they're like, really? So we're driving away and they said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I don't know if I want to see Bigfoot. Maybe he could walk across the road and we could take his picture. Maybe that might be okay, but crucifixes falling off the wall at me are less scary than this. So the next day we got up and we had breakfast and we were just like 10 miles down the road from where this happened, and I said, all right, it's daytime, we gotta go look for footprints. Right? I'm excited, let's go. Yo, they didn't know how to do this. I'm like, I had to get mean. I am gonna admit, I kind of believe them. I'm like, you can't be a Bigfoot researcher and not go look for prints, you just can't. I'll laugh you right out of here. You have to go look for prints. So I kind of believed them to go, and the one lady who was driving the other car of people and me in my car, we drove up there. She gets out of the car wearing flip-flops and shorts. And I said, you need to put pants and shoes on, you're going to get poison ivy. She says, I'm not going to then. She took some pictures and Facebook Live, and she says, we're out of here, bye. And I said, but they're right there. And I had made a rule, because I was team leader, right? And I made a rule that nobody goes in the forest by themselves because we're going to be safe. I grew up in the woods by myself, come on. So they left left, and I got in my car to drive away, and I thought, this is dumb. It's right there. I'm gonna go look. Get out of my car. I go by myself, breaking the rules. And I'm walking, and when I do remote viewing, which is a psychic thing, I use geographic. I call it geographic remote viewing. It's different than the controlled remote viewing that others are doing, which was actually helped to develop by the government. But I do what I call geographic remote viewing. I look at satellite imagery, Google Maps, Google Earth, and I ask questions while I'm looking at it, and what I see on the image changes in reaction to my question. I find bodies this way, is people. I can tell you what's happening in a paranormal location, what's happening there and why. I can find lots of stuff that way. Just have to ask the right question. And what I see on the picture changes. Sometimes it's a picture, sometimes it's a movie, sometimes they wave at me, or they go, shh, tell them. Right? So I'm walking, and as I'm walking, you see these sticks right here? They create an X, and there are two things that are plucked out of the ground and stabbed in there making an X, and we find these a lot in Bigfoot research, all X's. You know, people have different ideas of what they mean. But when I do remote viewing and I ask for, is there any Bigfoot evidence that I can collect here? What if there is, it lights up a golden light color in the area where it's going to be, right? That's how I see it. And so when I'm walking here, this whole path is lighting up a golden light. Can we go back to pictures? It's lighting up a golden light, and I'm seeing it, and I'm walking along. This is my path. I'm not going the right way. And what happened then was, I'm hearing a voice, and it's very sing-songy, and it's saying, Jennifer, Jennifer. Now, my name is Jennifer. My mom calls me Jennifer. My family calls me Jennifer. My friends call me Jen. This was weird. I didn't even feel like it was weird. I'm like, yeah, we're going. And then, as a psychic, you know, we all have different ways that information comes through for us. For me, sometimes I have a memory that screams in my head with a message, okay? So what happened was, in my head, I heard my friend Maria, this was a memory. She screamed, don't ever walk into a fairy ring. They could take you and never bring you back. And it startled me because it was so loud. And I stopped and I'm like, what? And then I realized, because I still hear Jennifer, I'm like, who is calling me? I didn't realize I was in a trance-like state until that happened. And then I was like, I realized I'm not in control of myself. Who's calling to me? So I got scared and I turned around and ran back to my car. And now I'm in my car and I'm feeling safe. So I still want to know what happened, so I pull up where I can see this path. I'm feeling okay, so I roll my window down and I start clicking pictures, right, off the window with the window open. I can still see the golden light, I can still see the path. I did not notice that the forest was doing this behind it until I looked at the pictures later. But that's exactly where I was supposed to be walking into. That's where the golden light led to. Okay. So I went home and I discovered this, and then I was like, dang it, I should have walked into there, but what if I couldn't get back, and where does it go? I don't know. But I thought, no, I would gladly go if I had somebody to hold my hand and go with me, because if we can't get back, at least we'd be together. So I went home and I told Jenna, and she said, okay, let's do it. Anyway, we went back there and it wasn't there anymore. There we go. Next. Oh, I gotta see what time it is, because that clock back there isn't working. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where the footprints end. There's a lot of stuff that happens with Bigfoot researchers where you find trackways of prints that just end. And they shouldn't just end. In snow, they should continue. They shouldn't just disappear. Because, you know, what happened? There's a lot of wondering, what happened to that creature? Where did its footprints go? Why did they end? So we found a trackway of footprints on the Red Lake Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota, where I belong. It's a closed reservation. Don't go there thinking you can Bigfoot, because you have to have a tribal member with you at all times if you leave the road. I took my team there a couple of years ago. Film crew. Told them, do not leave my side. I'm a tribal member. If you leave my side, you could be arrested. We were deep in the woods. They got tired. We're going to go back to the car. Jason and I were still filming something. They left. you with? We're with Jen Cruz. Who are you with? We're with Jen Cruz. I don't see Jen Cruz. They're like, crap. So now my phone's blowing up. Help! The police are here, and we're not with you. And thankfully, it was my elder's nephew. He was there with the other, he's a conservation officer, he was there with the other police officers, and he put his vehicle behind mine so they wouldn't tow it. And it was only because of him that they did not get arrested. Because it would have been 90 days for in jail in the same. Okay. So we were driving on the Red Lake Reservation one day, and I was asking again, Feel the Energy Bigfoot, and Nikki was driving the car that day, and I was leaving my awareness wide open. I do not drive like that, it's dangerous. So I'm sitting in the car, we're riding, I'm asking to Feel the Energy Bigfoot, and I yell 55 miles an hour, stop the car! Stop the car! And they're like, what? I'm like, there's a Bigfoot right there. They're like, how do you know? I feel it. I feel the energy, it pulled me that way. So we turn the car around, we go back, and behind this woods, we find a way to drive into it, and behind this little woods, there is a gravel pit. We didn't know there was a gravel pit there. We drive into the gravel pit, and there is plain as day footprints going with it. Can we go to the next one? And there they are. This picture is taken from the top. That's me at the bottom. And this is Nikki. She's sitting next to the prints. You can see how big they are compared to her, right? This hill was so straight up that the girls had to climb up next to it on their hands and feet, and they would take a step and they would slide back down. It was so steep. Whatever this was did not put its hands down and walk straight up. They couldn't do it. They struggled to get up this hill. But they measured every single one of these prints. The biggest one was 24 inches, it had slid. The smallest was 18. That was definitely Bigfoot. I took this and I showed it to Bobo for finding Bigfoot, and he said, after he saw the angle of that, he said that had to be a squash, that couldn't be a bear. Sometimes Bigfoot prints are mistaken for bear footprints if they step within the same step, a double step. They can be confused, but that couldn't have happened on this land like this. Can we go to the next picture? There's just another angle of that. Look at me, I'm so cute, way down there. Way down there. But you can see the toes and everything, even though it's gravel. We tried to cast this. Go ahead and do the next one. That lady on the hill laying next to the prints that we cast, that is Nikki Jordan. She was on our team. She's since passed away. But she was a valuable team member of ours for quite a while. I'm going to tell you right now, casting prints on a gravel pit doesn't work. It didn't turn out good. Since then, we've learned different things that we could have tried differently to make them better, but it just didn't turn out. All right, next. Oh, back one. So Jenna climbs up to the top. I did not climb it. Jenna and Nikki climbed to the top, and I said, Jenna, where do the footprints go? She said, circles! I'm like, what? She says, I'm going to send you some pictures. So she's taking pictures with her cell phone, and she sent me these pictures. Can you see the circles? Can you see the weeds? They're laying down. You see the weeds back here not laying down? The footprints ended at the circles. And they are perfect circles within circles within circles when there were 3 circles. With these circles within circles within circles, which I thought, that looks like a portal. Jenna knew that I had a thing for circles within circles because as we travel the country together as best friends, as we do, I'm always saying, let's stop and look at petroglyphs. Because they are not very well documented online. You kind of just have to go there to see which ones they have. Do you have the circles? I'm not seeing the circle ones. You just have to go there. So when she saw circles, circles! The end of the circles. They did not descend the hill. She walked all around the hill. The footprints did not descend the hill. They went up, they did not come down. There was no Bigfoot up there, clearly. Okay. So where did the footprints go? This seemed like a confirmation of what my elders had said, that they can travel physically, instantaneously through the ground from one place to another, because there's some evidence that there's no footprints going down, but there's footprints going up. Okay, next. Now we're going to move into something a little bit more native for you, and yet it still applies soldiers across the world. I know in World War II, the fighter pilots called them Foo Fighters because they saw the balls of fire that flew through the air very, very fast, doing moves that they couldn't do, right? So I didn't know what a water spirit was, and I'm going to start this by going into a little bit more of my native story. So I wasn't raised that way. I'm a mixed blood person. We were very poor. We lived on a farm. My mom raised me a very, very old way that she knew. We milked cows by hand. We cranked butter in a hand crank churn twice a day. We had 150 laying hens. We grew, raised, and hunted almost everything we ate except for flour, yeast, and chocolate chips because chocolate is a necessity, right? So I didn't know any of the things that she had taught me growing up were native because she never said this is native or this is white. This is just how we lived. I didn't know that she ever taught me anything native, but she did. And my mom was native. And she was also mixed. So they didn't teach her this is native or this is white. It was just how they lived. So she didn't know she was teaching me native things any more than I knew it was native when she taught it to me. So I was born weird. I was always sensitive. I scared my parents with the things that I said. I said things like, Great Aunt Gladys just died. We'd look at the clock, it was 11:28 a.m. And then I would cover my mouth because I heard what I said, and everybody's looking at me like, what? And then a little while later, the phone would ring, and they would say, Great Aunt Gladys died today, and I would say, what time? What? Oh, what time? Oh, I don't know, like 11:30? Mm-hmm, yeah. Okay. But, I mean, this started when I was little, when I was just learning how to talk. I would say things that scared them, and I knew, I could sense that I was scaring them, and that they felt like a push away. It felt like rejection. And I wanted to be accepted and loved just like any other kid, so I learned very quickly, we do not talk about this. We hide that. We just want to be normal. And it was my prerogative to be normal, just like everybody else. So I tried really, really hard not to say weird things, not to feel weird things, not to know weird things, but it still was happening anyway. Okay? And when I got older, still it would happen. I would see things. I would pull people out of the car before they got wrecked. I just knew things. And I wasn't trying to do anything. It would just happen. Okay? So then as I was in my 30s, like last week. I'm 53, by the way. So when I was in my 30s, I learned Reiki. I became a Reiki master teacher. And during my final Reiki attunement, I'm in a room along with, it's like a ceremony. I'm in a room along with my Reiki teacher. She's got some music playing, it's very quiet, she's doing her thing. I'm like sitting there with my eyes closed, enjoying my attunement, right? And when it's done, she turns the music off and she tells me what she saw. She doesn't always see something when she does attunement, but this time she did. She said she saw an older man's hand from about here down. Came into view. He said something like, I found you, and then he claimed you. He claimed you. It's like, okay. What does that mean? She goes, I don't know. And I said, well, okay, that music that you were playing was absolutely beautiful. I was hearing it through the whole time, and all I could think is, I want that CD. That was back when we had CDs, not MP3s. And so what I was hearing in the music were wolves howling the entire time mixed with the music, and I thought, wow, what a great idea, that was beautiful. I said, can I have that CD? I need to buy that album. I just love the wolves howling in there, what a beautiful idea. And she looked at me like, what? I said, the wolves in the music. She said, there are no wolves in that music, Jen. I said, yeah, they howl the whole time. No. She turned it back on. There were no wolves howling in that music. There was nothing. It was just music. I was like, that's weird. But then I kept hearing wolves howling where they weren't after that. I kept hearing wolves howling. A week later, my uncle called. He's a very white man, married to my mom's sister. And he says, I need you to come up to my deer camp. I said, why? He says, I need you to push the deer off the Indian land into my deer camp land. I said, what? He's like, yeah, I can see the wolves. They're like herding them away, like keeping them off my land, like on purpose. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. He's like, I know, but they're doing it. And I'm like, okay, and why do you want me to do this? It's like really far you have to be the one to do it. And I said, why? He goes, because you're Indian. I said, so is your wife. So are your kids. Why are you asking me? And he said, I don't know, because it just has to be you. I goes, I don't know. It just has to be you. I'm like, well, can I even walk the land? I'm in the tribal land. And there's the Indian land up there anyway. And he says, yeah, the treaty was if they didn't do anything with the land, they had to give it back after 50 years. So all the land around my deer camp has given back. I'm surrounded by Indian land now. I'm like, okay. So then I called the Red Lake DNR and I said, hey, can I have this land up here by my uncle's deer camp? And I told them where it was. They said, no, you can't. You're not a tribal member. Well, I didn't like that one bit. I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm going to tell you I'm extremely stubborn. I do not like to be told I can't do something because then I want to. Anybody else? All right, it's not just me. So my stubborn side kicked in. Now I want to walk the land because I said, what do you mean? Like after my mom dies, I can't go to our family land on the reservation. Are you telling me that I can't? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. So I was like, I'm going to find a loophole. Watch. So I started looking into things, researching about the Anishinaabe people. And in my readings of this online, I discovered that the Anishinaabe people believed that they were the caretakers of the earth. And they had all these extra senses to tell when things were out of balance so that they could put it right. And I was like, wait a minute, I have extra senses. Maybe this is where I fit in, because I never fit in with anybody else before. And all of a sudden, my stubborn quest for a loophole turned into something else. I was finding my people. People that would understand me, right? So I started reading more and more about that. And then I was like, I need to find an elder. I need to talk to somebody who knows this stuff. And so I was looking for somebody that I could talk to, and I found an article online of a man who gave a quote to a reporter who was there for something. And he said something about the old ways, and I'm like, that's the guy I need to talk to. He knows about the old ways. So I got his name out of the article, and I looked up, and he had a phone number, like, in the phone book. Like, he had a landline. Who has that? This is a long time ago. So I called him, and he wasn't home. And I talked to his wife, and I said, hey, I'm not sure if I'm calling the right guy or not. Maybe you could tell me. She goes, what are you looking for? And I said, I'm looking for information about the old ways. And she says, and how did you find my husband's name? And I said, he made a comment to a reporter a long time ago and ended up online in an article about the old ways. I said, why is he not the guy? She says, no, he's the guy. He's like the only guy for like reservations across. He's the guy. I'm like, oh great. She's like, yeah, good first try. And then because I had been doing all this reading about sensing the imbalance and that maybe there was something wrong and something needed to be put right, I thought something must be wrong with the wolves. Because I kept hearing the wolves howling everywhere where they weren't. And I'm like, something's wrong. Maybe. I don't know. Why am I hearing this? So I said to her, hey, are the wolves okay up there? And she said, what? I said, I realized I'm now saying weird things. And I had trained myself not to do that anymore, right? And I'm like, oh, never mind, it's weird. And she goes, no, why are you asking me about the wolves? And I said, no, it's weird, never mind. She goes, I'm used to her, tell me now. And she kind of scolded me, and I said, okay, I've been hearing wolves howling, and there are no wolves howling, and then I was reading, and I see that the Anishinaabe could sense when things were wrong, and so I thought maybe I was hearing the wolves howling because there was something wrong. Are they okay? And she said, I haven't heard anything about the wolves. Where did you get my husband's name? And I said, I told you from an old article he made for talk to a reporter and then up online. She's like, do you know his Indian name? And I said, no. She said, it's Kichimaiman. I said, okay. She says, do you know what that means? I said, no, I don't. And she says, it means the great wolf. He sent out a call, and apparently you've been hearing it. So then he called me back. And the first thing they said to me was, I could hear you crying out there. How did you get so far away from the water? That was the first thing he said to me. It didn't make any sense. But he heard me crying out there. He sent out a call for me to come home. It was his hand that touched me during my Reiki session that my Reiki master teacher saw, and that he claimed me. And that's when I was hearing the wolves for the first time. Isn't that a cool story? That's a cool story, I know. And it goes on always felt like I wasn't going to be accepted. My mom wouldn't take me to my own reservation because I was too late. She raised me at the reservation over where it was more common for there to be light-skinned people. And even there, I was grabbed as a little girl by an old man and shook really hard, asking me why I was here, little white girl. Right? So my mom was scared of having me there, and she taught me to be scared too. So I was scared that he wasn't going to accept me once he saw me. So when he said, it's time for us to meet in person, I was like, and I'm like, can I bring my mom? Because she's dark. Can I bring my mom? Yep, you can bring your mom. Okay. So we figured out when we could go, and I asked my mom when she could go, and she gave me a weekend that she could go, and I called her and I said, my mom can come this weekend. And I told him when he says, I won't be home then. I'll be running an event at the conference center. Do you think you could come there? Well, that's 12 miles from my mom's house. That's where I grew up, on the reservation over. And he was the spiritual leader of our tribe. Okay, he was the leader of the David, which is the Grand Medicine Society. And so he had to be there to oversee spiritually leading the we were running a conference called the Wild Rice Roundup. It's for chemical dependence and flowers and things like that. They were really people. And it's a huge thing. So he says, can you come there? I said, yes. I'll take my mom, we'll be there. So he had us meet him in the restaurant, and I was so nervous. And he didn't blink an eye. He brought me food. He didn't blink an eye that I was white. His wife was white and from movies, and with her blonde hair. He didn't mind at all. I loved it. Anyway, so he told me stories for 2 days sitting in that restaurant of stories that I would have heard as a child had I been raised by him. And every day, every story, he told me how old I was. He started at age 2. Oh, I can see you age 2, just sitting there wanting to hear another story. I can see you age 3, climbing up on my lap, just wanting to hear another story. I can see you age 4, sitting right there, wanting to hear another story. I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? What is going on? Does he like little kids or something? I'm like, what's going on? I mean, literally, this is what I was thinking. At the end of the 2 days, it was time to go home. And I got literally 12 miles away, and I started bawling. And all I knew was that I was crying because I didn't feel sad about my dad anymore. My dad left when I was 2. And I knew that this man, this medicine man, he just did something to me. And so I called him and I said, what did you do to me? What did you do to me? I'm crying. He's like, yeah. I said, what did you do? He said, I just gave you what you missed. And then he said, I just gave you what you missed. He became my dad. He started me at age 2, and by the end of 2 days, I was an adult. He told me kids' stories that I would have heard if I had been his daughter. And he became my dad that way. And he filled those holes in me that were empty. And that's how Native medicine works. He taught me that much later that to do Native medicine, you look at a person, you see the holes, what did they miss, and then you try to figure out how you can help them fill those holes so they can become whole again. And that's what he did for me. Anyway, so he ended up having a dream, and then he said, your grandmother came to me. She wants you to have her names. Will you take them? She wants you to have all of her names. Will you take them? And what he meant was my great-great-grandmother, because nobody that I knew of had been named since her in sacred ceremony. I said, yes, I will take her names. I knew that they would have had a list. She was really smart. Every time the reservation rolls would come around, she gave them a different name every year. So that they would record all of her names. And then when she got married off the reservation, and she used another secret name because she was a twin, and they hid that. They would only let one of the girls be seen at a time. They were given the same name. So she was tracking all of her names so that when her sister was looking for her, she might. And one of their shared names was Nishoden, which means twin. And that's one of my names too. She had done that, and I didn't understand the story in my family. It's a verbal story that there were 2, and that her sister was given to a Canadian lumberjack as a young wife to take to Canada to make sure that at least one of them lived. To make sure that one of them lived, because most of the kids died. Just checking the time. So I'm going to fast forward now to 2010. And I went to my aunt's house in Beaver Falls, Minnesota, outside of town, and I stopped at a park that I always stopped at as a kid when I was on to my aunt's house. There's a giant Indian statue that faces the river where the Beef River falls into the Red Lake River, and the Red Lake River comes out of the lake miles away on the reservation. And I'm excited because the snow and the ice has just melted and I can be barefoot on the ground. And that's really big for me. I love to be barefoot on the ground because there's an energy that I can feel coming from the planet. And I would talk about this, that there's this healing energy coming from the planet, and people would look at me like I was nuts. Okay, Jen, you bet. So I'm walking barefoot on the grass. It's cold, I'm still doing it, I love it. And I found a warm spot. And I stopped and went, why is it warm here? I stepped this way, it's not warm. Stepped this way, it's warm. Stepped this way, it's not warm. Why is it warm right here? I couldn't figure out why it was warm. I dug down in the earth a little bit. Kept walking, I found another spot, also warm. And then another and another. And I couldn't figure out what this was. And then I walked up to the river and I saw people in the water. Except they didn't look like earth people, they were made of fire. They looked like fire people. And when I looked at them, I knew they were my family. And I said, hi! And I was so excited to see them. And they were so excited to see me. And they said, come home. I said, yes, I miss you. And I went to jump in the water. And they said, no, don't jump in the water, you'll die. And at that time, I did not remember being human. I did not remember my life here. I did not remember my daughter or my family at all. I just knew that they were my family and I wanted to be with them and I'm going home now. And they said, if you get in the water, you'll die. And I'm like, I can't die, what's that? And they were like, do not. And so I looked away from them, and then I remembered being human, and I remembered my daughter, and then I'm like, why didn't I remember that when I looked at them? And then I looked at them, and I forgot again. And I'm like, oh, excited to see them, and I looked away, and then I remembered again. And I'm like, why can't I remember when I looked at them? And I looked at them, and I forgot about being human, and I forgot about my daughter, and I looked away again. And I remembered my daughter, and I got scared. Why can't I remember when I look at them? Don't look. Don't look. And I ran away from the river. I was scared to look in the water after that for a moment. But then, what happened was, later that year, I kept feeling called to go to this place on my reservation, and I wasn't a tribal member yet. I couldn't go there by myself because it's off the main road. And I felt like the place where you have Upper Red Lake and Lower Red Lake and really come together. It's not called this on the map, but locals call it the Narrows. It's where the water's narrow. Right? And I needed to go there, and I didn't know why I needed to go there. I needed to go there. I didn't know why I needed to go there, but I needed to go there. So I went to the powwow, and I went by myself, and my elder was there. And normally I stayed at his house. I had my own room there. I was there all the time. And I would learn from him for about 5 years. But this particular time, he said, you can't stay at the house because my kids are coming home. I'm like, what kids? I was jealous. What? I've never seen one of your kids. I'm the only one you got, right? I was very jealous. I didn't like this at all. But I put me in the bed in the back of my van, and I decided to stay at the powwow grounds. So that's where I was going to stay. He was scared to leave me there because he thought I was going to get raped or something by myself because I was very trusting, running around and hi, how you doing? Let's go to this. Okay, great. And so he told his oldest son, who was now home, that he was my bodyguard, and he hired him to be night security at the powwow so he could watch me all night. He says, you watch her. Nothing happens to her. If you go to the bathroom, James is watching her, who later became the police officer that did not arrest my friends. James is watching her if you're in the bathroom. If nothing happens to her, you watch her sleep. Nothing happens. Okay. So in the morning I said to him, hey, can you take me to the Narrows? He's like, I have to sleep. I said, that's fine, but can you take me to the Narrows first? I really need to get there. I need to go there. Please, will you take me? I can't go there by myself because I'm not a tribal member. And you are. Can you take me there, please? And he's like, I need to sleep. I've been up all night watching you. And he looks at my van and he goes, that looks pretty comfy in there, that bed. I had put a mattress in there. I said, yeah, it's really comfy. He said, can I sleep in your van? I said, as long as it's at the Narrows, I don't care. Can you take me to the Narrows? You want to sleep in my van? You go ahead. So we drove there. He climbed in the back of my van and I went running for the water. And all of a sudden I started to sing a song in a language that I didn't know, but I knew exactly what I was saying. And it was just happening. It was autopilot. And I was like, I knew exactly what I was saying. I was calling in the waters from the lower world. I was calling down the waters from the upper world to this place in the middle where we are, right here, where the need is one in this place, right here. And that's what the song meant, that I was singing in words I didn't know, but I was singing it. And all of a sudden, I said a prayer, and I actually thought, sometimes this happens where I'm like two people in my head. I say or do something, and then I'm like, what are you doing? To myself, right? I don't know if anybody else does that. But I said a prayer, and in my prayer, I said, I don't want to be nervous. Make me like nervous. And if you've heard me, give me a sign, then it's going to happen. And just then the eagle flew out from the tree behind me, flew right in front of me, and looked at me, and landed in the tree behind me, and it's just looking at me. And I'm Eagle Clan, that I am considered an eagle. So to me, that was a yes. We heard you. I start crying. Yeah. And as I lift my head up, full tears, I see across the Narrows, which is a mile across to the other side of the water, I see a fireball fly up out of the water into the air and fall back down into the water. And then it started zooming towards me. It started zooming towards me under the water, and the time it took me to go, it was right here. It was fingertips away from me, and it stopped. And it was just there under the water. It's like a basketball-sized ball of fire. It looked like a ball of fire. And it just stayed there. And it was windy that day. The waves were waving as it was very windy. And so my body's moving back and forth, almost like a dance because of the water waves. You know? So I'm dancing in the water with the water. And I didn't know what this thing was. And so I was scared. And I said, don't be scared. So I said, okay, I'm going to look back. If the eagle is still in the tree looking at me, I'm going to know not to be afraid. So I'm going to look right now. And I looked. The eagle's still there looking at me. And I said, okay. So I said to this thing, bonjour, which is hello and welcome in the Ojibwe language, and it wiggled. And I was like, okay. And so then I did my formal introduction in Ojibwe, all my names, my clan, who named me, who my ancestors were, where I come from. And it wiggled again, and it said, and I heard it in my head, it said, yeah, I know who you are. Right? And then it started to spin and go around me really slowly. It stayed about and I couldn't have reached it like this, right? But it started circling me counterclockwise. And as it did this, it was like I had a volume button on my joy, and it was turning up the volume. And it started to go faster and faster and faster. And as it went around me, that joy volume button was going up, joy, 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 joy. And it was intense joy and intense amounts of love, unlike anything I could comprehend. And I tell you that right now, that it is unlike anything a human can comprehend. It was more joy, more love than I could comprehend. It was just, wow. I have not been the same since, because it's weird to be here without that. It's weird to be here without that. It's hard, because I know that that's available, and it's not for people, you know. So that part's been hard for me. But as it's circling me really, really fast, it no longer looks like a ball of fire. Now it just looks like a ring, because it's going really fast. And it's getting closer to me, and I can't see below my boobs when I look down. So I look to my side, and I see it's almost touching me, and then all of a sudden, and I was no longer in the water. Now I'm in a movie in my head, and I am a wild rice seed hanging from the top of a reed that I was initially standing next to in the water. There was wild rice seeds there. And I had never really looked at wild rice before, other than on my plate. I didn't know what it looked like close up on a plant. And I could see in this vision that I was this little wild rice seed hanging from this stalk by a single hair. And it glistened in the sunlight, and it was the same color as my hair. And it was hanging onto this reed by that same color hair. And I had this whole experience. It was a very native story that I was in as this wild rice seed. And when it was over, I got snapped out of it by the drums beating across the water, and which meant it was 1 o'clock and the powwow was going to begin. I got in the water at 8:30. the story, share the story. Okay. And at the same time, I was told that my elder or his son was supposed to be in the water with me when that happened, and they went. So I went running out of the water to the van, and I threw a pair of shorts at my elder son, and I said, "Put these on, you have to get in the water." He's like, "What?" "Put it on." And I drug him to the water, and I said, "Say a prayer." He's like, "What? I said, "Say your Indian name." And he said, Deva, Deva. I don't know how to say it. How do you not know how to say it with your dad, with who your dad is? How do you not know how to say your name? I go, "What does it mean?" He's Little Wolf. I said, "Little Wolf is my Indians. Devada is not part of that." And he goes, "Will you do it for me?" And so I introduced him as his dad's son, with his dad's Indian name. And I said, "My Indians." Nothing happened. I waited for a ball of light to come, nothing happened. So then we got in the car and we drove back to the Powell. His dad was running it because he was a spiritual leader. And I went to him. I went to him and I said, "This is what just happened." And he said, "Already? Are you ready for this?" I said, "Am I ready for what?" He said, "Are you ready? I knew this was going to happen to you, but I didn't think it would be this soon. Are you ready?" And I said, "Ready for what? I have no idea what he's talking about." And all he said was, "There's an intimacy coming to you and you better be ready for it. You have to be ready." And that's all he would say. I told him the story. And I later went home and I recorded myself telling the story, and it came out like a long poem. It just flowed out of my mouth. And I typed out what it said. But at the end of the story, when I recorded it, I heard myself say the last part, and I said, "What?" What? Because the last part that I never actually put on the story when I wrote it, the last part said, "There's a fire in the water, it came to dance with me. There's a fire in the water, dancing into me." And then I remembered, I didn't remember it leaving. I just remembered that it touched me. And I immediately went to my elder and I said, "This is what I just said. Is that thing inside of me? Did that thing go inside of me?" He wouldn't answer me. "Is that thing still inside of me?" He wouldn't answer me. We went years like this. I was very mad. Because I knew that the answer was yes. And he needed to tell me that because I also knew that sounded crazy. And I needed him to tell me yes or no. Tell me something. And he wouldn't. He absolutely would not go there. He wouldn't talk to me about it at all. So at one point, I was at the reservation and I got into the water with his son who was guiding me there. I wanted to record a guided meditation video, so I started to record the waves with my cell phone. And as I was standing in the water up to my ankles in the narrows, I heard a voice that said, "Point your camera down and to the left and you'll catch me on the video." So I did. It was a sunny day. I couldn't even see my screen. I didn't know if I was catching on video or not. And then pretty soon his son came out and he said, "It's time to go." I said, "Okay," and I turned it off and I walked out of the water. And as soon as I stepped out of the water, I forgot that a voice told me to do that. And I forgot that I was a video. I never even watched it. And then we fast forward years later, after me drilling my elder asking him the same questions and he refused to answer. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I remember the video, I remember the voice. I went to the video, immediately found it. Who does that? I never find him right away like that. And there it was, going around in the water in the video. So I sent it to him and I said, "Do you have anything to tell me now?" And he answered me in 2 emails. He said, "Yes." The answer, I have an answer to your question now. He said, "It happened before you were ready and that's why you don't remember that day. It happened before you were ready, you weren't ready, and you don't remember it. And the fact that it gave you this video as an answer to the question that you always ask me, and the fact that you remember that it's there now means that you're ready for the answer. And the answer's in that video." Can we go to the next slide? Next one. All right, this is a video. Can we play it? So, I know it's kind of right here, but watch. This is me pointing it down and to the left. Pretty soon you're going to see in here, don't blink because it's going to be fast. They move. Did you see it? If we want to back it up and try it again, I think sometimes you can even scrub it so it goes slower. But they're fine. They move really fast. Most of the time people don't see it because they move so fast. That's a water spirit. That's what my dad called it. And if you notice, it came out like this. Not like And it came back. Because that's where it lives, right here. And that was the answer to my question. So, I wrote the story. And I put it on my website, and I never told the story. I just put it there for people to find. And the next one might be like screenshots of the, yeah, see there, these are paused screenshots. You can see them. Here it's here. There it's up there. There it's there. Up there again. Now it's over here. Down here, going through the read. Going through the bigger read. You see it? It's about that basketball size ball of light, right? They're not solid. Feels like absolute joy. That's what I'm saying. So, I'm running out of time, so I wanted to, as I was sitting here yesterday, I heard the voice say, tell the story. Tell the story. So I'm going to read you the story, and I'm going to try really hard not to cry. Okay? I went and got screenshots of it, so in case my internet wasn't working right, I could do it. Alright, so the story is called Dances with Minomen. Before I tell you the story, I have to teach you a few words in Ojibwe so that you understand the story. Minomen means wild rice. Minomen means wild rice. Nuden means wind. Yichi Nuden means big wind, great big wind. And that and Miigwech means thank you. That's all you need to know. Okay? Minomen means wild rice. Yichi Nuden means big wind. Miigwech means thank you. So I put those Ojibwe words in the story, the rest is in English, so here we go. Are you ready? I felt a calling through the rivers, a faint whispers hidden within the wind, and so the narrows called to me, come home, come home, come home. How does a place call out, as if like my own close family? For just a moment I held the memory, but the memory quickly faded, leaving only traces of its feeling. I felt the calling through the rivers, faint whispers hidden within the wind, and so the narrows called to me, come home, come home, come home. How does a place call out, as if like my own close family? For a moment I held the memory, but the memory quickly faded, leaving only traces of its feeling. How does my heart quicken with joyous excitement? It is a powerful calling, a sacred drum has awakened. I felt it beat within my heart. It echoed forever within my soul. So I journeyed to the waters at the narrows, and the waters called out to me, come in, come in, come in. Without hesitation, I walked into the water. And with the Minomen dancers now, I kneel to dance with them. The waves come in, they sway gracefully back and forth, and I follow with their lead. I let the waters guide the movement of my body, and together we danced and danced. Calling in the waters, I sang in languages I did not know. I was calling in the waters, come meet me in the narrows. Calling down the upper waters, calling up the lower waters, come meet me in the narrows. Here we flow together, here we dance together, here we can become as one, dancing with Minomen, upper and lower waters, here at the narrows. Here we flow together, there's no division, no prejudice, here we are as one, dancing with Minomen. Minomen shared her story. I saw her memories as if they were my own. Minomen grew up from whence its tiny seed had grown. Nuden had whispered to Minomen, there's a great power in your hair. The hair of the tiny Minomen seed glistened in the sunlight as Nuden blew it back and forth. Gitche Nuden came, and suddenly Minomen was carried on the air by its breeze. At first, it was as if she had gained the ability of flight. But then she fell far and deep, and so far from the light, down into the waters, down into the sand, rock, and earth. Minomen was frightened and cried out to Nuden, Nuden, you dropped me. I've fallen. Hearing no answer, she cried louder and louder. But here, under the waters, Nuden's whisper is never heard. Minomen wept, oh no, I've fallen, I'm lost. It's so dark, I'm all alone. A soft voice said, you are not alone, sweet child. I'm here with you. Mother? Manoman asked. Is that really you? Yes, child. You must go now. Go on. Keep reaching for the light. Manoman regained hope once more, and she began to reach for the light, reaching, ever reaching, growing out from under the sand, rock, and earth, moving and dancing under the waters, flowing with the waters, from the upper, from the lower, in the place they meet as one, here in the center place, here at the Narrows. Little Manoman growing, growing, ever reaching, always reaching towards the light, moving upwards, ever upwards, reaching to the light. Cresting the surface of the water, the air felt cool at first. The warmth returned with the memory. As noon blows, the water laps over little Manoman as a reminder of two worlds, this one and that, in the water out, in the light, in the dark, in the wet, in the dry. Experiencing two worlds rapidly as noon's wind increased. In and out, under and over, water and air. As the wind ever increases, the waves come more violently, stirring up the sand, stirring up the earth, mixing in the waters to remind Manoman of where she had grown from. I'm frightened, Manoman cried out. Earth-mixed water caressed Manoman's head as the Great Mother said, Fear not, child, I'm here with you. Mother, Manoman cried, I don't want to leave you. I will always be with you. Wiggle your toes and you will feel me there. I'm going to try not to cry, Edson. Bonjour from all your relatives, Manoman. She was hello, mother. Gitchy Newton roared loudly. Mother, Manoman cried, I'm so afraid. Gitchy Newton is up here. Manoman tried to crouch lower, to stay under the water. I have many children, the Great Mother said. Children of the water, children of the earth, and children of the air. But you, my sweet Manoman, you are the most special kind of all my children. You have a great power in your hair, Manoman, as do all of my children of the fire. Children of the fire? asked Manoman. Yes, the mother says. My children of the fire are born from a great and powerful mixing of the very different worlds of air, water, and earth. A great mixing? asked Manoman. You remember your father, Gitchy Newton, don't you, Manoman? Manoman gasped as she realized that Gitchy Newton had purposefully cast her down from the world of air. Gitchy Newton didn't want me. That's why he dropped me. Gitchy Newton did only what I asked him to do. The mother said, Listen to me, Manoman, roared Gitchy Newton. I took you from the world of air, delivered you to the world of water, and gently carried you to reach the great mother's womb in the world under the earth. I knew you would join me one day. Manoman was a child born from all the different worlds. Child of the fire, are you ready to use your great power? Gitchy Newton asked. What great power? How do I use it? You have grown so strong, Manoman, the mother said. Soon you will be with all your relatives, as you stand equally in all the worlds at once. Having her roots deep into the earth, and her body in the water, and her upper part of her reed in the world of air, she stood equally as one in all the worlds at once. No matter what happens, always remember who you are, child of the fire. Plant your feet firmly within me. Hold your head high and stand tall among them. Invite them to dance with you as you bridge the worlds together. Use your power to restore peace among my children. Stand as a reminder of the great love and peace that was used and to create you. And so now, Manoman stands, had kept growing taller, the waves no longer come tall enough to remind of the water. Manoman ever remembers the life under the waters, the life in the dark, down in the sand, in the rock, in the earth. Under the waters where there was no sunlight. Instead of light, there was a smokeless fire, and its warmth more comforting than a hot day. That is the fire of the energy of the greatest love made possible only through great peace. Now the Manoman stands tall, living in all worlds at once. She's a blessing to all knows this. She's lived in both worlds, and she communicates in all the worlds at once, sharing her blessings in all the worlds at once. Moved by the Noah's story, I wept. I began to pray, Miigwech, Ichimund. Thank you for creating me to be like Noah. Let me remain as Noah, dancing, always dancing. Here, it's in the Narrows. Let remain as Noah, where the waters meet. Here in the center place, where the waters narrow. I shall serve like the Noah. As I cross between the worlds, I shall be a bridge connecting them like the waters in the Narrows. I am a Minoan dancer now, dancing in the Narrows. My dance shares the harmony that I have found within. I bring blessings to all my relatives, for I too am a child of fire. My ancestors mixed all the worlds together, so they may live peacefully together within me. I shall always remember who I am, because I am them, and they are me. I shall stand tall among the two-leggeds as a reminder of the great love and peace it took to create me. I am a Minoan dancer, a child of the fire. I'm sending out a call now. Remember who you are, all of you children of the fire. It's time to dance and share our light. The seventh fire has been lit. Come dance with me. Come dance with me. Really, come dance with me. Come on, guys. Seriously.